Good afternoon, everybody. Marty Richards with Richland Center Tourism here today. It may look like it's Jim Cantori with the Weather Channel, but nope, it's still Richland Center Tourism. And you may wonder why we're out here on such a rough day with the weather. Well, it's going to get rougher, so we decided maybe we better do some of these episodes before it really gets pretty cool. But nonetheless, here we are with another episode of Why Do We Call It That? And today we're in Little Willow area, and we're talking about McAvoy Hill Road. So McAvoy Hill, named after James McAvoy. Not a real exciting story in himself. James McAvoy came from Ireland, directly from Ireland, first to Chicago, and that was about 1850, and then he moved from Chicago here to Little Willow in 1860. And in 1860, he homesteaded a farm, kind of set up his family, had several kids, and life went grand. That's about it. There really isn't anything too, phenomenal or historically significant up to this point. But there is the rest of the story, as Paul Harvey would like to say. So the rest of the story is one of his sons was Johnny McAvoy. And Johnny McAvoy, along with another one of his brothers, taught themselves how to play fiddle and became known as the Fiddler of Little Willow. Well, they played quite a bit on their farm. There was a little picnic spot. People would come from Richland Center, picnic on Sunday. The boys would play. It was a grand old time. Also, Johnny and his brother started to travel around a little bit in the area and played quite a bit. Now, Johnny was no ordinary resident of the area. He stood out from everybody else. Two reasons. Number one, for a simple farm kid, he wore very extravagant clothes, even as a young boy. Also, during his time, he would keep his hair long. He rarely cut his hair. And as a youngster playing fiddle, he had long, glowing hair, they said, flowed in the wind. And then also, he dressed very extravagantly. Well, in 1903, his father, James, passed away. At the time, James was one of the oldest residents in Richland County. He was 93 years old, so pretty significant at that time. And at about the same time, his sister married a man, and they moved to Rockford, Illinois. So for whatever reason, Johnny at this point decides to go with his sister, works for a little bit in a knitting mill. We don't know much about that. Works for a little bit, but he continues to play fiddle and kind of takes on the name as the Wandering Fiddler. And he continues to play and actually becomes very well known in the Midwest as somewhat of a savant. Still at a fairly young age, right at the turn of the century, he really hits his biggest prominence. And as he bragged to a interviewer from the Richland Democrat way back in the turn of the, it was actually about 1910, 1920 that he was interviewed, he bragged that I got to play Meet Me in St. Louis at the 1903 St. Louis Exposition. He also got to play for Kings in Chicago. He played at the Palm Gardens, which was a very extravagant place at the time. Really well known as one of the more extravagant fiddlers of his time and a bit of a showman, they talked. So Johnny's career is going well, and at one point his sister moves back. His brother, Olmsted McAvoy, was still farming on the farm. Johnny started to come back, kind of missed home a little bit, started to visit people. And one time when he's getting ready to go back to Chicago, he walks across a house in Richland Center on Central Avenue, the Haskell House, that had a room for rent sign out. He decides, hey, what the heck, maybe I'll stick around a little bit longer. He meets Mrs. Haskell, who was the widowed wife of Dr. Haskell, and the house still stands today. It's actually of architectural significance. She takes him in. He starts to live there. He actually lives there for the rest of his life. He never goes back to Chicago and actually spends from that point forward the majority of the rest of his life wandering around Richland Center playing fiddle, again known as the Wandering Fiddler or the Wandering Violinist. And as he gets older, he has something significant happen in his life that causes him to never shave or never cut his hair again. And so long hair already becomes much longer. They started to call him the fiddling Santa Claus, or just Santa Claus, because of his looks. He turned white, his hair turned white, very long, very unshaven, but still wandering around town playing the violin. And they say that one of the reasons he quit shaving, or the reason he quit shaving, was that at one point the First National Bank lost all of its money, shut down, and his deposits went with it. That is the most likely story of why that happened. The other one is more of a legend, that his wife had passed away during Christmas and that he couldn't bear to take the Christmas tree down, and so he always wanted to remember himself as Santa Claus. It appears in his life he was never married, so that was just a story of legend. So Johnny McAvoy continues to live in the Haskell house for many, many years. Actually, he ends up at age 85. He finally passes away in 1965, and that is the story of McAvoy Hill Road. So real interesting, kind of detailed, really more about the story of Johnny McAvoy. And the real kicker is that it turned out later in life that one of his boyhood friends started to refer to him as the Liberace of Little Willow. And actually it appears that he may have looked a little bit like that. So very extravagant dress, long hair, very talented, very much a savant with the violin, and very well nationally recognized for his talents. So that's why we call it McAvoy Hill. I hope you folks are staying warm and aren't getting a sore back from shoveling the snow. But hey, if you got a snowmobile or if you like snowshoeing, this is great to get out and enjoy. For Richland Center Tourism, I'm Marty Richards. Have a great day.